Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Fantasy Girl here, or as my friends know me online as Claire Faye, and I'm here to talk about another predictions video. So I haven't done one of these in a long time and I really started missing it, and I was actually giving a lot of thought to Elidibus lately, especially after everything that we learned from the last letter from the producer. Already rumors are flying about what we could be expecting for kind of the wrap up of the story to Shadowbringers. And it really got me thinking because Yoshi P did come out and state that the final trial, like the trial for like the big bad final boss for Shadowbringers, he seemed pretty confident that we would never be able to guess who it is. And so that immediately, well, I guess that rules Elidibus out right now. And I can't say I'm surprised. I was not expecting us to be able to get rid of Elidibus right now. It just feels like in every expansion we're able to kill off at least one Ascian. Like, I mean, we took care of Nabrialis back in A Realm Reborn. We took care of, actually, well, technically we took care of just one because Thornton took care of the other one. I mean, we took care of finishing off Igayorm, and it was technically Thornton who killed off La Habrea. Yeah, and we already took care of Selk, and there's only like one main Ascian left that kind of has like an undivided soul, like an unsundered soul. And that would be Elidibus. And we really don't know that much about this guy other than the fact that he's known as the emissary. Like he's the white-robed Ascian, basically, and that's how we've known him for a very long time. And it wasn't until recently did we find out that he actually was once part of Zodiac's heart. Now, we don't know too much more about his history other than what Selk told us, and apparently he's supposed to be kind of like the head honcho of the Ascians, or at the least, he's kind of the mitigator with the other Ascians, just kind of making sure that everyone plays nicely with each other, or so it seems. I mean, he respects Selk to a certain degree, but I think it was kind of, well, Selk never really came out and admitted it, but it was really kind of like Elidibus is kind of the head honcho. He's kind of like their boss, and I think the only people who really didn't have to answer to him would probably be La Habrea and Selk themselves. But in this last patch, we kind of got a surprise in that he took over Oddbert's body. I mean, it was hinted at ever since we first saw the trailer, and is now pretending to be him as he goes around and helping people reawaken the Echo, and he's just trying to get people to rise up as warriors of light. And recently that got me thinking, what is he planning? I've given this all over a lot of thought. I've done a lot of research on all sorts of theories, and there was recently one theory that I had in mind that no one else seemed to be talking about, but I personally think that this might be what he's secretly planning. So this video is going to be all about what I personally think about Elidibus and what his plan could be involving in patch 5.3. Alright, so technically I'm still trying to figure out the whole Elidibus thing. We still don't know exactly what makes him so different compared to the other Ascians. I mean, he's supposed to be Zodiac's heart, but we still have no idea anything else about him, really. So this video is just going to be my personal predictions, my own thoughts about the whole thing, what I personally think could be happening, and I hope that, and if anyone out there agrees with my plan, please leave a review down below, let me know what you think, and maybe share some of your own ideas. I would love to hear it. Okay, so to summarize real quick, the Elidibus, who was part of the Convocation, became the core of Zodiac around the time of the final days, while Vina, who was kind of like the leader of this rebellious group who did not trust Zodiac. At least they did not believe that summoning Zodiac was a good idea. They felt that his powers should be restricted to some degree, and so they called forth Hydaelyn, with Vina serving as kind of like the core, like Hydaelyn's heart. And that's pretty much all that we know about Vina, by the way. So we've only seen just a few glimpses of Elidibus throughout the game so far, and technically the Warrior of Light only met up with them face to face once before 5.2, and that was way back in 2.1, like 2 expansions ago. Now, I've been really scratching my head as to how Elidibus' little scheme of sending a whole mess of Warrior of Light wannabes running around Norvrons, how is that going to be a bad thing? I mean, In a lot of ways, that would be considered actually a good thing, because the Warrior of Light, or in this case, the Warrior of Darkness, isn't going to be around forever. They do eventually have to go back to the source because of all the problems going on there, especially with the Garlean Empire. And yeah, so Norvrant has to kind of pull themselves together and kind of fight for themselves now. They have the night sky back. Eden is slowly bringing everything back to life in the empty. That's going to take a few decades, of course. But yeah, they have a lot of work to do. And they can't really rely on the Warrior of Darkness to be there forever. So they kind of have to maybe plan out for like future heroes, I guess. In 5.2, Elidibus did cause a kind of illusion of this giant star shower, and people who saw it, some people were given the ability of the Echo, or rather the Echo was awoken inside them, and he was kind of rallying them all to him, like trying to get them to rise up as warriors of light and kind of fight for this star and save this world. And if it were anybody else, that might have been a good thing. But this is Elidibus here, and we have no idea what his plan is. I mean, we know what his long-term endgame plan is, to basically cause a rejoining, join all the worlds back together, and then sacrifice all the people that remain to bring back everyone who was sacrificed to Zodiark. Now that is his endgame. That is his long-term plan that he's been working for thousands of years. But how does any of this help towards getting him to that goal? Elidibus making a bunch of woken people who are pretty much thinking that they're doing like good work, like they're chosen ones, and yet they're unknowingly lending Elidibus their ears. I mean, I've read a lot of theories going on about maybe Elidibus is just trying to inflate their egos, and they're going to cause some brash, foolish actions and willful ignorance, and he's going to be manipulating them into summoning a primal or a giant sin eater, and maybe accidentally repeat what happened with Amarant. I even had a Free Company member tell me clearly he's just trying to set them up to kill us in a moment of zealotry. But is he really planning to do that? I mean, I find that whole idea to be very unlikely. I mean, that's just me. Okay, so out of all the theories, personally, one of my favorite plans is that the idea is that what will happen in 5.3 is that he is actually going to be bringing basically the first to destruction, which would cause the Exarchs to do something drastic like move Norvrant all the way to the source. And that result is that the first is going to be merged with the source in a more literal way, with Norvrant becoming part of Hydaelyn. What this theory is that they're going to be taking the continent of Norvrant from the first and teleport it over to the source. And this will kind of result in what's left of this world is just going to be one great empty space where only Sin Eaters roam. Kind of like what happened with the 13th and how it's occupied with Voidsent. Norvrant will eventually adapt to their new surroundings and its source counterparts, and Garlemald is going to be pretty interested in this brand new continent. Really? I mean, really? Alright, let me get rid of this theory right away. First of all, it does not make sense to bring an entire continent to Eorzea. Don't get me wrong, I think that would be cool. I would love to see Grahatia like joining the war table with like everyone else as they plot a way to kind of overthrow Garlemald, or rather put a stop to Garlemald's plans. But that is very unlikely. First of all, what would be the point of doing all the Eden quest lines? What would be the point of starting to restore life to the empty? That would be completely pointless now. There would be no point in bringing back life to the empty only for this to happen. Not only that, I think that an entire continent arriving completely out of nowhere with people from a completely different world is not a good or safe idea. It would cause all kinds of problems because basically the people are not supposed to even know that there are other shards out there. I mean, the Warrior of Light was not helping things by kind of talking to people. I mean, if you do a lot of the job quests, you kind of let slip to a lot of people that there are other worlds out there, so they probably did not help a lot. But really, people are not supposed to know about this. I mean, there's a reason why in Kingdom Hearts, the trio here are not supposed to tell people they're from other worlds, because they're supposed to protect the world's balance and just for everyone's sake, it's really better that you don't know that there are other worlds that you can go out to and then just cause trouble there. Now, the people of Hydaelyn would probably see them as invaders or like aliens or something, or worse. And it's just stupid because they're not like pieces of a puzzle. Like, when the Sundering happened, it didn't just break off the world into different pieces. No, they're like exact copies of each other that were just kind of pulled away. And just, they overlay, basically. So you can't just conveniently drop an entirely new continent from another world onto another planet, basically. I mean, that would cause all sorts of problems. I don't even want to think about it. The weather, for one thing, would change. There would be massive loss there. Not to mention that, let alone what was ever pushed aside to accommodate this. I mean, can you imagine like an entirely new continent just dropped off in the middle of the ocean there? I mean, I would think that the ocean levels would rise, and that would cause massive flooding probably throughout the rest of Hydaelyn. Probably not the best idea to kind of win over your new neighbors, if you ask me, by flooding their home. And I would find it just kind of tragic if like the entire world of the first is gone after everything, but that's just me. So I'm sorry if you're a fan of this theory, but at least I don't see that happening from a way that would make sense from a storytelling part. Now, there are other people who are thinking that Elidibus is trying to do something that will turn the people of the first against the Warrior of Darkness. Now, out of those two theories, that one seems to be a little bit more likely. I just struggle to think of any kind of argument he could make that would suddenly frame the Warrior of Darkness as a villain after everything that happened. I mean, you can never underestimate like people who believe that they're doing God's work and that they're chosen to save this world, and technically the Scions and the Warrior of Darkness are aliens from another world, but still, I don't see them turning against the Warrior of Darkness that easily and having them trigger another flood, which is another theory because people think that what Elidibus is trying to do is trigger another flood. Now, let me explain why that cannot happen either. There's no way another flood is going to happen because Elidibus doesn't want a flood. It would be bad for their plans as well as for us. Now remember, what they're trying to do is prep both a shard and the source so that when a calamity comes, the shard would be absorbed into the source and then a rejoining happens. A flood prevents that from happening. It's the last thing they want to do. Just like how when the Flood of Darkness took the 13th and it was turned into a void, it's completely unusable to them. What they want to do though with the remaining shards is that they want to cause enough imbalance in them so that when they do trigger a calamity in the source, it would be forced to kind of reabsorb the shard and all the ether, and it would rejoin with each other so that all that ether would flow into the first to kind of repair the damage. That was kind of what they had planned for Scylla, the Shadow Keeper. They planned for her to be killed by Odbert and the others, to kind of make an imbalance of light and darkness so that when they do get ready to trigger a calamity in another world in the source, that would be enough to trigger a rejoining. What happened was that Odbert and the others spared the Shadow Keeper's life, and they went after the Ascians, Lodrith, and Metron. Still don't know how exactly that triggered the flood, but apparently by killing them, they accidentally set things in motion that eventually caused the flood. And it was because of the flood that was coming that it was Elidibus who approached them and offered for them to go to the source and hurry and kickstart a calamity to rejoin the world before it was completely wiped out by the flood. So he is not planning a second flood. That is the last thing that they want. So triggering a flood with these new warriors seems unlikely. And besides, Elidibus doesn't have a pending calamity in the source right now anyway. The Black Rose is gone thanks to Xenos, so unless we are unaware of another threat coming from the Garleans to Eorzea, a rejoining isn't going to happen. And Elidibus was there, like he saw Xenos, so he knows Xenos is back. There was no doubt in my mind that he knows about that, and he would probably have guessed already that he would have destroyed the Black Rose, or at least kind of suspect that he would, so he can't count on the Black Rose anymore. So what is his plan here? I mean, my best guess when I was thinking about his speech about wanting to keep the others mired in the first seems to be an action more to disrupt the Warrior of Light's progress specifically, but how does he intend to do this? It was kind of hard to figure it out, so as he's basically creating a bunch of people with hero complexes, which is another thing. The idea that he's awakening these people and urging them to become warriors of light, of all things, to turn against the warrior of darkness, seems very poorly thought out. I mean, if he really wants to create a whole bunch of warriors of light and then just turn them against the warrior of darkness just like that, I mean, if that really is just his plan, he's not being very smart here. Think about it. He is supposed to be a master tactician. He's had thousands of years of experience of manipulating people. He has the experience and the power to get people to turn his way to thinking. I mean, if you think about it that way, then maybe he could possibly turn them against him. But again, even if that is true, I mean, if he hopes to turn the people against their saviors that easily, I think he is severely underestimating the people, even if he does look down on them. Even if their egos were inflated into believing that they were these next chosen ones, I don't think that they would turn against the Warrior of Darkness for several reasons. First of all, the Warrior of Darkness saved their world, or what's left of it anyway, and since then, they have done nothing but help the people, such as with the politics in Yulemore, restoring life to the empty, though most don't know about that part, to be honest, and they're going out of their way to slaughter any stray eaters like they come across. Not really somebody that they would want to turn against, and the shift against the Warrior of Darkness would be going like a full 180, and that's going to be difficult to explain in a storyline. Though I suppose if you do want to look at history and look at what happened to the Warriors of Light way back then and how they were seen as villains, well, I guess anything can happen. But even still, even if there are a lot of people with these hero complexes, they don't seem to be so much of a threat. I mean, sure, some of them might be able to hand themselves like in a fight, like with the Crystarium guards, but most of them seem to have been living relatively simple lives. I mean, they're not trained warriors or anything. And we would still have the support of like the majority of the world, like Lena and her soldiers, for example. So I don't think they would be outnumbering them that easily, and certainly not capable of actually defeating the Warrior of Darkness because they just awoken to their new powers with the Echo. Sure, it sounds like a great idea to go out into the world and help people and become the next heroes for the first. I mean, that all sounds great in theory, but if you really think about it, these people seem to be kind of really not understanding or not really comprehending that it's going to be a lot of hard work. It is not a simple task. Even with the Echo, they're not warriors of light is what I'm trying to say here is. I mean, sure, they have the potential to be warriors of light. They are blessed with the Echo. But that alone does not make them warriors of light. They have potential. They're in training. They're warriors of light in training. They do not have the title warrior of light just yet. They have to first earn that. That is a title that is earned, not freely given. And they seem to be kind of underestimating that whole idea. Or maybe not underestimating, they're overestimating themselves. And also, I don't think they would be 100% on board with becoming warriors of light anyway. After all, they lived their entire lives fearing the light. Sure, they had the Warrior of Darkness stand up for what the heroes did, and they now understand more about what happened way back then. There's more to the story than they first thought. But still, after fighting against the light and these creatures of light for so long, I don't understand that they could really turn and fight for it so easily like that. And that's kind of hard to swallow. So, what do I think that Elidibus is trying to do? So I actually have two different theories, and I'll mention them both. So the first one is actually that he intends to kind of mislead these would-be heroes against the Warrior of Darkness by creating another kind of illusion. And I really think that if he does try to turn the people against the Warrior of Darkness, it's really the only way to go about it, because trying to pin the blame on the Warrior of Darkness is going to be difficult otherwise. I mean, they can't frame them as villains directly, but maybe they can somehow frame the Exarch as a villain, and then, by extension, the Warrior of Darkness when we stand at his side. I mean, that would help kind of push the Exarch into either staying in the Crystarium or going back to the source with the Scions. I mean, that's kind of been the debate here, especially since he's on the cover art, so he's going to be a major figure here in 5.3. And people have been going back and forth about, is he going to be staying on the first in the Crystarium, or is he somehow going to go back home to the source with the Scions? I mean, this might help push the debates into him going back with the Scions. because he's keeping big secrets from the masses. I mean, he's really keeping everything here hidden, including like the apocalypse, about who the Scions and the Warrior of Darkness really are from. And if you look at the truth of what happened with Ishgard's founding, then you can kind of understand why people would think that, about how basically the leader of this huge city is kind of keeping everything secret here. And some are actually wondering if maybe he would be bold enough to actually reveal the truth about all of this, the fractured worlds, the existence of both Hydaelyn and Zodiark as primals. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Elidibus to speak half-truths to these Warriors of Lights and convince them that the Warrior of Darkness may not be as good as they think. It could be that he's trying to push them into kind of the first versions of what happened with the Crystal Braves. They were a group that was founded with good intentions, but they turned bad through manipulation. Though I think that once they realize that they've been played like puppets here, they're going to be turning way back around and fighting against Elidibus with the Scions as allies. At least that's what I think would happen at the end, if that really does turn out what happens. I mean, that's certainly all possible, and I will not begrudge Square Enix if they decide to go that way. Personally, though, I'm looking a little bit more into my own second theory. And this is a theory I actually came up with on my own. I did not see this anywhere else. But this is what I personally think is going to happen, or at least a certain degree of it. One thing we have to remember about Elidibus is that he is smart. He is a master at manipulation, and so his plan must be something that we aren't quite seeing. Still, the problem for him is that he's just one person. And that's when I got to thinking, if I were a seemingly powerful ancient being whose chosen mission is to destroy life and everyone that we know and return it to the way it once was, seemingly with an endless barrage of people to use in order to achieve this goal and supplies at his disposal, but is completely on my own, well, the first thing I would do is recruit more people. I mean, if you really think about it, that makes a lot of sense. Because he's just one person. Even if he does go around to each one of these shards and preps each and every single one of them into pushing them like to the very brink, and then goes back to the source to start all over and recreate the flood, even with the time difference between worlds, that is going to be very, very difficult. You need at least a couple people working for you in order to achieve that goal. And he's pretty much on his own. I mean, let's do a quick head count here. We don't know exactly how many of the Ascians are left. We do know that with the convocation of 14, there were 14 members. Now, if you minus the defector who left, and also minus all the other servants that we have, we're just talking about like the main group here, there's going to be at least 13 of them all together that we have to worry about. There may be more, hard to say, but we know that there are at least 13. And most of them at this point are dead. So let's do a quick head count here. So apart from Elidibus, there was Lahabrea and Emix-Selk. Both of them were also unsundered Ascians, the only other two aside from Elidibus himself, and they're both dead. Nabrialis is dead. Egeorm is dead. So that's 4 right there. Plus there's also Laudriv and Mitron, they're both dead, and if you don't know who they are, they were the Ascians that were killed by Odbert and the others. And Emix-Selk pretty much confirmed that they're dead too, so that's 2 more, so that's 6 altogether. And those 6 are the ones that we know that are confirmed to be dead. So what else is there? We do know that Gaius has been going around and he's been killing Ascians, so he's killed a handful of them, including 2 of the Red Masks. I don't see how he would be carrying around their masks otherwise, so I'm going to say that there's at least 2 others dead. Not only that, there's also the one from Eureka. And if you play through the story of Eureka, you eventually come to find out that Eureka is the Isle of Val, which disappeared. The reason that this happened was because Galuf, Cryol's adopted grandfather, he was the one who cast the whole isle into the life stream because another Ascian by the name of Emeroth was the one who accidentally discovered the power that Eureka had, a primal that was sealed away there. Galuf then cast the whole isle into the live stream where it was suggested that the Ascian was destroyed in the process. We don't know for sure if that's true, so for the time being we have another Ascian dead. So altogether, that's at least 9 Ascians dead out of 13. So Elidibus doesn't have much help here. He doesn't have too many people backing him up. I mean, he has to do a lot of hard work right about now because we know how to destroy Ascians. And that's a big problem here for him. So even if he does have all the other shards kind of prepped and ready to go, he can't be in 2 places at once, no matter how good he is. So if I were him, my first plan would be to try to recruit more people. And if you remember, it was just the 3 of them whose souls were unsundered. All the other Ascians were sundered. Their souls were broken up into different pieces and were kind of scattered across the other 13 worlds as well as the source. I'm guessing that what happened was that when they eventually found them, they kind of brought them into the fold by maybe they reawoke their memories and their abilities. They explained everything that was going on, and that's how they brought them into the fold. They somehow reawoken their memories. But it doesn't seem that they were able to rejoin themselves with their other broken pieces. So technically, the souls are still out there. So let's look at Egeyorm, for example. So Egeyorm kind of was in charge of the 13th until that whole disaster. And I'm guessing that they must have been maybe a denizen of the 13th. So we were able to take care of the shard of Egeyorm from the 13th. Maybe they were rejoined with all the other broken pieces, like after so many calamities. But still, there are technically other pieces of Egeyorm's soul scattered throughout the remaining shards. So, if you look at it from that point of view, Egeyorm might still come back. I mean, it won't be the same Egeyorm that we fought and destroyed before, but it is certainly possible. But even if that is true, how is Elidibus supposed to find them? Like, especially since they are scattered throughout what's left of this whole world. Well, it is stated that not everybody is the sundered version of an Amaradian. Basically, if you have the echo, I think it was stated here, if you have the power of the echo, if it's awoken inside you, then that is a clear sign that you were once an Amaradian soul yourself. And so Elidibus isn't really too focused on the average person, like they're beneath him, but people who have the echo, he's much more interested in. This was kind of shown back in 2.1 when we first met him and how he was so interested in Menphelia's power, like the original Menphelia anyway. He was very interested in that and actually kind of paid a little bit more attention to her. Like he was talking to her kind of like, not an equal, certainly not an equal, but kind of like they had potential. So I don't know if he was able to recognize her soul to who she might have been way back then. I'm guessing that he must have, based on what he said. But anyway, he's not interested in just anybody. He's interested in only people who have the echo because that's a clear sign that they were Amaradians in the ancient past. So he's going to be kind of narrowing down the field of people who would want to help him. I think that he thinks that if he could just get more people who are aware of the truth of who they once were, like way back, like thousands of years ago in the beginning, he could somehow reawaken their powers, maybe bring them over into his way of thinking that the world was a much better place. Because once he reawakens their memories, they remember of Emerald. They remember everything that they once were and how perfect life seemed to be back then. And he's going to try to tempt these people with that paradise. Like he's going to say, come to our side here. Help us bring back that paradise. That's what you want, right? A place of perfection, a place where there's no fighting, where no one is discriminated against. This is what you have to do. This is what you must do if you want to see that paradise someday. That's kind of what Emmett Selk was able to do to Varys. I mean, he had years of kind of slowly brainwashing him into thinking that mankind is incomplete, imperfect, and so we kind of have to destroy everything. We have to rejoin all the worlds, and only then, once we are completed, then we will be able to bring back that paradise. I mean, sure, Varys was not on board with listening to everything that Emmett Selk said, but if you had a lifetime of somebody kind of telling you, like, this was how the world was supposed to be, this is how the world is messing up, maybe I can understand that. I can understand that very easily. And so, yeah, that's what I personally think. I do think that Elidibus' big plan right now is just kind of getting more recruitment. And imagine the kind of power that they would have. They probably wouldn't have the same kind of power as the original Ascians that were destroyed, but they would still be powerful enough to kind of give the Warrior of Darkness a run for the money. After all, we've seen the kind of power that even a sundered Ascian had. Nabrialis was able to control time to a certain degree when he first fought against the Warrior of Light way back in the Source, so he was pretty powerful despite the fact that he was only a fractured shard. And if you have all these people here, like all these people with the Echo, like slowly realizing who they once were and decide to go over to Elidibus' side, suddenly you are up against an army of Ascians. Like, his ranks are all filled out, and pretty much you would be screwed going up against all of that. Even the Warrior of Darkness, I'm sorry, like, you would not stand a chance, like, with an army of Ascians. Also, Elidibus, in a way, wouldn't be lying to them. Like, he's saying, like, come, save the world with me. Help me to build, like, this perfect paradise. Like, he wouldn't be lying to them if you really want to look at it from that point of view. Because in his mind, he's doing the right thing. Like, he's the hero here. Everyone else is against him and his beautiful dream of bringing back, like, this lost paradise. So he's not really lying to them. I mean, he's not telling them everything that they should know about, but he's not lying at the same time. He's just not revealing everything that he knows that they probably don't know and probably really should know if they want to know the whole truth about all this before they do something really stupid. I honestly believe that the Elidibus that we're dealing with right now is maybe just some form of Zodiark, just from the way he worded about how we could see him as just another Ascian. I mean, he straight up and tells the Scions and our character that he's there to fulfill the will of the Convocation, and that if we want to think of him as another Ascian, then we could. So he's just, I don't know, he's like begging them to underestimate him. The Elidibus that we face now is what I think the original Elidibus. He was the one that was the core or the heart of Zodiark. That part of Hydaelyn's design, why her attacks kind of break apart her target when she strikes them, it could have been because of this. It could be that they knew that Elidibus was the core. Remember, Hydaelyn was not as powerful as Zodiark at the time. Zodiark, he was summoned like from the sacrifices of countless people. They lost half of their population just summoning Zodiark. And then they sacrificed another portion to Zodiark to kind of repair the damage that was done. So Zodiark was very powerful, even if he did use up a lot of energy to kind of start to restore the world to how it was. The difference in power was amazing. Maybe like 1/10 of the population, like of the original population, was with the idea of summoning Hydaelyn. Hydaelyn, in comparison, would have been vastly weaker compared to someone like Zodiark. Maybe that's why Vana and like their followers gave Hydaelyn this specific power to make Zodiark weak enough for her to kind of bound together. Maybe another reason was because they wanted to intentionally take out Elidibus. They wanted to take him out of the Primal with the hopes of not only saving his life and his soul as well, but also weaken Zodiark. I mean, it didn't work maybe 100% of the way they wanted it to work, but it at least removed him from Zodiark, thus removing a substantial part of Zodiark's power. But that also leaves a very powerful servant of Zodiark that we have to deal with. That is something to talk about in a future video though, but given the loss of the 13th and how inconsequential and maybe not preferable for the wake of Zodiark, I start wondering if Elidibus is not trying to come up with some kind of big plan to somehow maybe overpass the Sundering. As we try to understand exactly what it is to try to get to his goal, maybe much faster. Maybe another theory is that he's perhaps trying to strike down Hydaelyn herself at this point, because I don't know. It's just something that involving all these calamities and rejoining the shards, it's just taking up so much time, and this way is costing him like as much time and energy. Maybe he feels like if he could just take down Hydaelyn, that might be enough to kind of weaken the binding chains for Zodiark to kind of freed himself. If you remember, even if we do take down Elidibus here, let's say, for example, that we kill Elidibus and all the Ascians, right? We don't need to worry about them anymore. Zodiark is still out there somewhere. Sealed away, sure, but he's still there. And we know how well it goes in most stories about having like the big bad enemy just locked away. Sooner or later, he's gonna wake up. But how's he gonna do that if he still has fragmented pieces in all the other shards? Maybe a theory that no one else has thought of is that he's actually trying to, maybe Elidibus is actually trying to see if maybe destroying Hydaelyn will be enough to bring back Zodiark, even if he is incomplete. And then once he's back, they can go ahead and rejoin him with all the other sealed away pieces in the remaining shards. At least that's something I like to think about. My greatest worry, though, is that I do think that Elidibus has potential to be a really good bad guy, or rather an antagonist. I don't want to say villain. Like, now that we know the truth, I don't like really looking at them as villains now. Antagonists. They're all antagonists. And I think he has potential to be a pretty good antagonist in the future. I really, really hope that it's not going to be like a very stupid or simple plan from him here. I mean, there is a lot of buildup for Elidibus right now. I don't think that we're going to be killing him off, like I said, in 5.3. I would be very surprised if we do. I think that we are going to put a stop to his plan in 5.3, and he's going to be forced to return to the source, maybe to kind of think back on a new plan. At least that's kind of what I'm expecting here. I don't think that we're going to be able to really get down to destroying him, at least until 6.0. And maybe we have a 7.0 where we actually focus on like the main villain here, like Zodiark. Like we can maybe fight him. That's just something to think about too as well. But yeah, come on, Square Enix. Do not do something stupid here. Do not make him just like a run-of-the-mill bad guy here. There's so much build-up here, and we understand that he is a thorn in our side, but we're also a big pain in the ass for him. They kind of already ruined that a little bit with Xenos. You should hear like some of the things that people say about Xenos, about how one-dimensional he is, about how what a horrible villain that he is. I mean, not that he's good at being a bad guy, he's just bad at being bad. So hopefully they will be able to come up with a plan here for Elidibus to make him really stand out. Because otherwise it's going to be hard to kind of top the antagonist that we had for Shadowbringers. So far, he's probably my favorite antagonist that we've fought up in this game so far. And if Elidibus is going to have to stand up right along those lines with one of the very best villains that we've had, Square Enix is really going to have to pull their weight here. Anyway, everyone, that is my personal opinion about Elidibus. Those are my ideas and my theories about what he might be planning, as well as me maybe shooting down some of your own dreams about what you want to see with these other theories. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, what do you all think? Do you think that I was in the right of it? Do you think that maybe Elidibus could be planning something like that? Or if you think that he might be up to something completely different, please drop a review down below. I would love to hear it. Otherwise, I hope you all have a good rest of your day. We still don't know exactly when 5.3 comes out, but hopefully it will be coming out as soon as possible. I am so ready to play 5.3. They have to bring out all the stops here. They have got to make this an amazing ending to an otherwise really good story for Shadowbringers. I will probably be heartbroken if it turns out that they were sloppy with the story or if it doesn't make sense. They have got to make it probably the best patch that we've had. It has to blow our minds. And I understand that it is going to be delayed because of the coronavirus, and I don't begrudge them for that. I do think that it will be worth waiting for, and it should not be rushed, but at the same time, I cannot wait to see what happens. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you all so much for watching. And if you have any suggestions or requests for a future predictions video, I think I might be doing a predictions video about who I think the final trial boss is going to be. Again, just my personal guesses. But if you want to see something like that, please let me know, and I'll be seeing you again soon. Bye!